New research from the University of Sydney shows the genetic diversity of koalas is declining, the sign that the species is under severe stress. Elspeth McLennan is from the University of Sydney and joins us now. Welcome, Elspeth. So by how much is diversity declining?
Well, unfortunately, Ros, we don't know how much it is declining by because we never had a good baseline to know what was there prior to our most recent catastrophic event, which is our 2019-2020 bushfire event, which of course lost us an estimated about 60,000 koalas. We were approached by both the federal and the New South Wales governments to see what kind of genetic diversity we had lost when we lost so many koalas. Unfortunately, we've only had a limited amount of genetic data for certain populations of koalas and haven't had a really good baseline of sort of the entire eastern seaboard. So the project that we've undertaken is affectionately known as the Koala Genome Survey, where we have sequenced 413 whole genomes from wild koalas to give us an understanding of what diversity we have now so that we can make those baseline comparisons in the future.
So what's causing any diversity decline then, Elspeth?
So what we did find was some surprising things and some not so surprising. So we found that genetic diversity really declined on a north to south line across eastern Australia, with higher diversity in Queensland, down through New South Wales and into Victoria. In Victoria, we knew koalas had quite low diversity because they were hunted nearly to extinction during the fur trade in the 1800s. But there were some populations that we were more surprised about, and they were our populations that were really on the sort of hard east coast of Australia. And we found that populations that were on the east side of the Pacific Highway and around our large major cities of Brisbane and Sydney were having quite strong or quite low diversity compared to populations on the western side of the highway. And that's simply because koalas are struggling to cross that major barrier to dispersal, and so they are isolated along the coast there.
Didn't you carry out a similar survey in 2015? 10 years ago, you found good levels of genetic diversity among koalas. What's happened over that last decade?
So unfortunately, a lot of different technologies are used to measure genetic diversity. So we had previous technology, which was the best available at the time, only gave us a little snapshot. So the koala genome, I think we can think of it like a jigsaw puzzle, is 3 billion pieces large. And so the previous data we were looking at was kind of showing us anywhere between 6 to 2,000 of those pieces. So a really small snapshot. What we've done here is sequenced all 3 billion pieces for 400 koalas. So it's given us a much larger picture, a much better baseline to know what's really happening. And that is not just across sort of the whole genome, but also within areas of significance that affect koala phenotypes. So things like their immune genes, which affect how they respond to diseases.
So how can levels of diversity be improved then, Elspeth, and how important is it to get those levels up?
Yeah, so I'll tackle the second part first. So genetic diversity is such an incredible component to species survival. So genetic diversity allows a species to have adaptive potential, and that means to be able to cope with changes that occur in their environment. When you have a species with low diversity, they will all essentially respond in the same way to a threatening process, so be it a disease or an invasive species, and which often means in a negative way. So they will all be negatively impacted. If they have high diversity, some individuals will, by chance, be better capable of responding to that threat. They will go on to breed, and then their offspring will be equally successful with that phenotype, and that's called adaptation. So when we lose diversity, we lose that adaptive potential to new threats, and particularly for koalas, that's a concern for things like climate change and continued habitat fragmentation. How we can improve genetic diversity is by connecting koala habitats. So koalas are existing now in an unfortunate patchy distribution where we've put roads, major cities, developments in between their habitats. We're isolating them from one another. When they can't breed with each other, that's when they lose their diversity. If we can connect them back up through habitat restoration and connectivity, then we will be able to allow them to exchange genes and genetic material and increase their diversity.